you can notice. Then we will be getting into the theoretical part of this webinar, where we're trying to tell you everything from the identification of funding lines to how to successfully write the proposal, so that you will be masters, hopefully, at it at the end of this session. And then, of course, we have a small workshop plan with you guys, so you can work on those things as well on your own with us. And in the end, we will have a quick wrap up. So what do we hope you will learn today? So the first thing is that we want you to help figure out how to scan the funding program landscape, at least the way we do it and has worked for us. Then how to concretely develop a mature project idea, and therefore then write a successful proposal. And in retrospect with that, look at the do's and don'ts that you have to look at when you write a proposal, so that you don't do anything you don't want to do, or that isn't seen or isn't likely to be seen well in a proposal. So then we're getting to the REMOBILISE project. What exactly is it? Well, what does it stand for? First, it means regrouping mobility clusters to develop skills and exchange. And it is a follow-up project with the same project partners from the Recipe for Mobility project. It started last year in February. So we've known each other well and have worked well together, that we decided to work on a second project together, the REMOBILISE project. And the project here focuses on how we can position ourselves as a cluster to make the mobility in our regions more safer and more sustainable, and talk to our members about that. So in doing so, we have 4 key objectives that we try to follow. The first objective is that we want to work on our collaboration skills and networking skills, and then we try to learn from one another within these clusters, and that we try not to reinvent the wheel, because we know what works well for another cluster, and we try to adopt these methods then within our clusters if we haven't already done so. The second objective is that we want to help other cluster organizations learn new skills and therefore work on new solutions. So like today, we're hoping that you'll learn something from us. And then the third objective is that this program, or project, is part of the cluster exchange mobility scheme, and therefore we're trying to implement that and getting you guys to know about that scheme. And the last objective is that we want to reach out to you guys and raise awareness with certain activities, again, such as with this webinar. And then, oh, sorry, that skipped. We are 5 project partners from 5 European clusters. So the cluster mobility and logistics, that would be us. We're from Germany. Then we have the zone cluster from Hungary. We have Next Move from France. We have Mobinov from Portugal, and we have our consortium leader, RAI Automotive Industry, from the Netherlands. Exactly. And we have already done a few activities within almost a year now that the project has been ongoing. So we have held 27 interviews with our cluster members, divided amongst us 5 project partners, where we try to figure out what they think of our cluster skills and services, and how they look at the mobility ecosystem in our regions, so we can get a better picture of that. We've had 7 training sessions so far, and 1 matchmaking event in November and December last year for Horizon Europe. And we have recertified ourselves, or gained a new certification, reaching from bronze to gold for the European Cluster Excellence label. That was one of our goals that we had, that we reach a better standing within those labels. And so far, so good. It has worked out. And then lastly, we have done cluster missions, or already had one in November in Paris, and there are 2 more upcoming this year in May and in November, either in Portugal and Hungary. And this will be done with the Cluster Exchange program, where you will be getting a grant to join us with hopefully 3 fun-filled and learning-filled days. So make sure you sign up for the newsletter to keep up to date on these invitations. All right, now to the theoretical input. First, we figured out that we think there are 5 steps how to go from the identification part of the funding line to then successfully writing and submitting a proposal. So the first part is the identification part. It then moves on to the consortium building part, the project idea development part, the writing part, and then the submitting part. However, they're not all, it's not a rigid process, it's an agile process. So for example, the project idea can already be existing, and then you build the consortium. It doesn't necessarily have to be in that concrete order. And of course, sometimes your proposal will be rejected, but you have the chance to resubmit either at the same program or at a new program after you worked on whatever feedback you got from the funding authority. And we believe for the first part, the identification part, that there are 2 approaches for funding. So you have the cluster manager in the middle, and you either have a reactive identification or a proactive identification. So the proactive identification is when the cluster manager goes towards potential project partner once he has identified a funding call or program that would be interesting.
What?
The reactive identification would be if a project consortium reaches out to us or just one person with either a project idea or funding call that they are interested in. And for the proactive identification, I want to tell you a little bit more about that. For us, we're looking at this from like our German Regensburg Bavarian perspective. So what are possible funding opportunities for your cluster? That may vary depending on what country you are, but for us, we have 4 different opportunities. So we either have the local level, so this would be for us the Regensburg level. We were awarded a smart city project last year, and currently there are tenders being published for smart city calls in Regensburg. So that could be a funding opportunity, or then you have the regional level. So as we are in the state of Bavaria, these would be funding calls from the Bavarian state. Then the national level, such as like Germany for our case, such as the Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action. They always have a lot of different programs that they focus on, or the international level, such as the Horizon Europe program. So these would be the 4 options for us. Then, okay, what sources are there to stay up to date? Well, I'm kind of in charge of that for us, so I always sign up to every newsletter that is available from the funding calls or funding programs, more exactly, and funding authorities that are in line with our focus for the clusters. So that would be everything from mobility to logistics. And then every day I get an email with all the new calls and programs that were published, and then I try to screen those already to figure out which ones would be interesting for our members. Also, the website is always a very good place to start and figure out anything that you might have missed in an email or something like that. So you can see the news right on the correct funding website. They usually also offer webinars whenever they publish a funding call, at least for us. And then that is always very helpful. I try to sign up for those when I have time, because you always get a very deep introduction into the funding call by the funding authority, and you can always ask questions at the end and have a discussion with them. And therefore, that is always very beneficial. So try to make sure, if that is available to you, that you use those. Or there are research consultants or institutes, at least in Bavaria, where they are focused on everything related to funding. For us, it would be the Bavarian Research Alliance, we always stay in contact with them because they can keep us up to date on any new funding opportunities. And I'm not always switching the way I want. Okay, then what are the relevant funding programs calls for your members? So you obviously need to filter it a little bit because there's a variety out there. So first, I always like to identify the interesting calls that are aligned with the focus that we currently pursue in our cluster. We like to summarize the info for our members. It's always like a one-page paper for each funding call because it just really summarizes the important parts that the members would like to see. And we added to our so-called funding booklet every funding call and program that is currently out there that interests us is gathered in there. And it looks like this. So sorry, it's in German since most of the calls are German nature for us. We have every important title that you can find in the funding call. And we summarize it then. And at the end, of course, we provide a link if you need further details or more information that you can go on the funding call yourself and have a better view. And then we share this with our members. And we offer webinars as well. So we can, if they have any questions about the call, that we can already answer them and help them figure out if they want to submit a project idea or not. So when we contact our members, there are two different ways we go about it. So there's either the direct communication or the indirect communication. With the direct communication, it's always per phone, per email or an online meeting, because when we read that funding call, we had a specific member already in mind, or they had told us that they were looking for some funding opportunity, whatever the case may be, and we try to directly contact them and let them know, hey, this could be for you, so they don't miss it. Or we just go the indirect communication way, and we add this one pager, as I've shown you before, into the newsletter. So everybody that subscribed to our newsletter will get it, or the cluster member mailings that is just specific to our cluster members. We also share it on social media, or we reach out to our multiplicators that they help us spread the word that there's an interesting call out there. Then we have the reactive identification, as I've mentioned earlier. So there are three possible ways. So the first is a consortium approaches us with a project idea. So there are 4 steps that then we go through. First, we read through the project idea, if they usually have it summarized for us, so we get a good overview of what they are trying to accomplish. Then we go into our funding booklet to see if any of the funding calls or programs we have in there are in line with the project idea, or that the project idea could be funded by those. And the third step is, if that matches, we then try to show it to that consortium and tell them about it. Unfortunately, if also the case that sometimes we have nothing that concretely is perfect for that project idea, so then we go again through every possible funding source or the funding landscape to figure out if there was a program we missed or that would be best suited for that idea. And if we then identify that, hopefully we are going to communicate with the funding authority, because we have learned that it is very important to always first talk to that funding authority. There's always a contact person that they mention in the funding call, because then they will already know who you are. They will have heard about your project idea. It will not just be a random draft that will be lying on their desk. They already have a person in mind, a consortium in mind, and they can already give you helpful tips, what you have to look at, or what you have to pay attention to in the draft. what they like to see, and what makes it easier to get then approved. So always try to stay in contact with that funding authority. Then the second reactive identification would be either just one cluster member or an external person. It doesn't always have to be a cluster member. Approaches us with the project idea. You go through the same 4 steps that I just told you about, but we add a 5th additional step, which would be that we try to help that person in acquiring consortium partners. Usually within our members, we always try to match those skills, but it could also be a company or a research institute that aren't specifically a member, but they are here from the Regensburg region. We've already worked with them. We know that they work well, they have the skills, and then we try to get them to connect and work together. And the last would be we have a cluster member or external person who comes at us with a funding call. So here the steps are a little bit different. First, we need to figure out who the consortium partners could be. If that person that came to us already had a project idea in mind, like roughly, it doesn't have to be completely concrete yet, because the project idea will be worked on with the whole consortium, because they will have to figure it out together, how best match their skills and work together. So that is the second step. And then again, the third step is us communicating with the funding authorities. So this is how we see us as a cluster and the service we provide. We always try to do all the organizational stuff, everything that doesn't relate to the writing the draft itself. Even there, sometimes we help if it's just like a general thing that needs to be written, so that the consortium can really focus just on writing the perfect project idea, and we do all the other stuff around it so that they don't have to worry about that. And it's always best to always have one person communicate with the funding authority so that they don't get confused, that they have one concrete person in mind when they think about that idea. This is why we do that part. So that would be the first part of the 5 steps that I just told you about. Now we would be going on to the second, the consortium building. And here we have a small checklist for you. It was also from the other trainings that we have seen. So the checklist is, first you need to figure out if they're eligible to apply as well within that funding line, because not every company or research institute is always eligible. It is always best to have someone who has already had experience with EU project, because they're usually quite complex in nature. So having someone who's already gone through the process is very helpful. Of course, the project management and coordination experience is very important, because that is always very crucial during a project, that everything runs smoothly. You need to have the partner needs to have the resources, and it is always best to have a heterogeneous team. So it means you have varying different skills. You don't want the same skills. You don't want a homogeneous team, because then the funding authority always prefers if it's a mixed team. So you have an SME, you have a research institute, but you also have a big company behind it. It always looks better, because every person or every possible type of company and research institute is there, and they work together and share and exchange knowledge. And if at all possible, it is always good to involve your users or customers, so that, for example, if you're working on producing a new product, that the customers will actually want to use it, that they will see a benefit from what you're developing. So getting those into the project is always a good idea. And now we would be going on to the project idea development, which I will hand over to Anne.
So hi again, also from my side. So yeah, the third step is quite an extensive step, I would say, where also the cluster is just like a supporting partner, but the main work really needs to be done by the consortium itself. And yeah, here again, like you see, like we will have some iterations maybe during the time, but we figured out that we think the basic project idea development has like 4 columns, I would say, where we are concentrating on in the first step. Like really to think about what's the research problem, the objective, what's it about, why have you or why do you want to choose this topic problem? Like, is there, for example, some personal conviction or some other relevance for your company, for your organization? What also insights do you want to gain? What is the benefit for your customers, for your maybe members, for if it's a European project, for example, for the EU, or also for the funding agency itself. Also very important, like what's your solution path? So how do you want to solve the problem? Is there any preliminary work needed? Also, what methods do you want to use to achieve the goals? And in correlation here, also, what's the state of science? So what useful knowledge already exists? If it's, for example, some technology project, you will think about, are there maybe some patterns or something what you need, or some other formal research projects that you can use the results from? And also the question like, with what do you want to do the project? So what resources do you already have? Which ones do you also need in addition? Like how much will be the cost of the project? How long will it take? And very important, how qualified is the consortium? So these 4 columns, it's not a straight process. It's more like a first, I would say, mind map, what you can think about when you start a project. And then you can also weight like the content by core, by edge, and the background information. And this, like this first mind mapping think tank, I would say, will then lead to a more extensive process. So you will start to prepare. So you will find out what is maybe, or plan some master work lists. So what tasks are associated with the proposal. You should also already involve your employees or the potential project partners in a very early stage. So as Roxanne, for example, said, there are different ways of identifying the funding lines and projects, but some initial meetings is always very helpful also to really ask for the commitment of the potential partners, to find out the competences, to plan a schedule, a strategy for the work, not only when the project is done, but also a schedule how to develop the proposal itself. Because in the end, you will have some deadline to meet and you will need the effort from all project partners. You should seek advice from experienced colleagues, of course, from the consortium, but also maybe there are some others that may help. And also what can happen here in the first step, that you already need some documents, for example, some cooperation letter, which defines the commitment of the potential partners, or some management plan. And then, yeah, very important in this stage, be really prepared for changes. Maybe consortium partners may change, the objectives will change. So here, be prepared. And here, once again, a little bit more in detail. So when what Roxanne said before, like it's very important to organize some calls, some meeting with the funding agency to get as many information as possible. And here I just summarized some of the questions you may ask. So what do the funders want to hear it, not only to read it out in the call, but also really to ask the funders, because then you maybe see like, where's the, which parts of the objectives do they weight more or less? Are there any geographical limits? Also, that's actually quite important, like who are the auditors, reviewers? Maybe it's the contact person itself, someone else. Maybe you already know him, so you know which parts the auditor is like emphasizing more. Also, really question yourself, can we meet the needs with the consortium? Or are there any open points? And also, are there any spending restrictions, financial regulations? So not only the eligibility of the partners is important, but also like, does it make sense for you to apply for this funding line because you have a special, precise budget, what you need, and yeah, you should check this. And also, one question is always about the impact of a project. And here it's very important to question what is the target group of the precise call. After this very early preparation stage, we'll then start to research the state of art. So you will identify relevant topics, the status quo. You will find a research gap, hopefully. This can be, for example, that you analyze new data material or that you develop a specific method or theory for a precise topic. Then, of course, you need to find a suitable method so you can research what might be suiting, and also define an adequate conceptual tool. And also, that's very important, the right terms. So you should think about the terms which are already mentioned in the proposal and what do you understand here, and be here as precise as possible. Do not use other synonyms. It won't help the reader if you call the same thing in different ways. And also here in the end, also consider what may be possible objections to your argumentation when you think about this is a relevant topic. Here's a research gap, but maybe are there any possible objections, and how would you like to argue against them? Here is some tool, maybe you've seen it before in other contexts, but we think this kind of a perspective chart may help really to structure your thoughts. So in the middle, you will have some proposal, call, thematic area, some topic, and then you will have like 4 question areas that you can start to think about. So what do you already know about the topic? What skills do you already have? What do you like about the topic? What do you dislike about the topic? This is actually very important when you then really work on the project. And also, what would you like to learn about the topic? And for example, if you do something like this with this perspective chart in a first initial project meeting with potential partners, you will also better get to know the perspective of each of them. Like maybe you want to work together with a company which is a little bit bigger, a smaller one. They may have different perspectives on how to communicate with their customers, what benefits they want to have out of the project. And yeah, so this may help you in structuring all the thoughts of the different partners. Also, I want to mention here, we had in this REMOBILISE training sessions in December already one training session about scenario planning. And we would see actually also this tool in this project idea development process as very helpful. I've put here the presentation, but in case this is not working, just let me know. We will share the slides later on. And basically, this scenario planning helps to first identify driving forces, identify critical uncertainties, so the state of art, the research gap, and then to define and develop plausible scenarios and then discuss the implications and paths. So this to have like a very open mind in the beginning, and then to get even more in detail and precise will help you to finally then in the end formulate your research objectives. So the objectives you can derive from deficits. You should, as a tip, you should leave room also for extensions. For example, if you need to resubmit, you should have some possible extensions, and also for successor applications. Also, you need to think about what can you really do. So be here precise. And for some tip for the structure, basically be short. Do it, for example, with some enumerations if you have one or more goals. You can also do some sub goals, but to have like the main objectives and some sub goals within. And that's something most of you probably know. Do it in a smart way. So be specific, do measurable goals, achievable, relevant, and time-bound ones. So coming from the preparation, finding the research state of art, formulating the research objectives, we would then go even more into detail to really define, not only have this first idea about the research design, but really now to think about what survey method, what design is really appropriate to the problem that you want to address in the project. So which concepts, methods, designs are there, and also with which persons do you need to investigate the research question. And here also, again, define terms, do not switch, no synonyms, will help. After this step, we are coming to like really defining the expected outcomes first, and then also the related risks of the project. So first of all, what do you want to do with a proposal? So you want to sell your project. So it's very important to also define your unique selling proposition. What do you want to bring forward? Also in a bigger impact sense, what socio-political contributions do you want to make? And then the question really about the risks. Are there any uncertainties, risks? And what measures do you want to consider? And this part, the measures, is mostly very important for the funding agency, because we all know we are living in an uncertain world. So there will be some risks, but it's all about what you're doing with them. Here also some idea for a tool, just an easy table actually to define like what your unique selling proposition is of the project, what are the main goals, challenges. So we defined here some very generic aspects that you could use to think about, like how like what economical benefits, technical, human, organizational, ecological, social, or other benefits will come out of my project. And to just do not just name, but also to be precise, you can think about as precise argument and then really an example from your project proposal which help to strive for this benefit. And actually this unique selling proposition will then also be will be in the first part of your proposal. If you have an abstract and executive summary, the impact, this is really a very, very important point for the funding agencies. So here, then you do not only have expected outcomes, but you need to show off like what measures you undertake to maximize the impact. So you can do a promotion and dissemination plan, for example, for the whole consortium. It's also about knowledge management and protection. For example, do you need in a technological project, do you need to have some patents or something? And also you will think about market potential for the products, the services that you want to provide during the project lifetime. And then finally, after all these steps, you're going into the detailed project planning. So you will think about the work packages itself, the publications that you want to do, disseminations. A very good tool that most of us probably have already used in project is a Gantt chart and other tables, because they're giving a very good summary with also the timetable and milestones. And then it's all about resource planning. So till now, we've mostly haven't thought about this, but basically it's all about now being precise in what work and time do you need. So what are the contents, the activities, what are the single steps, what is the time per step in the project, and also the sequence of step. Do you have, for example, the first action point is lasting 3 months, and can the next step just start after these 3 months, or can it already start in parallel? Who is responsible? So here we're coming to the organizational planning. So which amount and which qualification of staff do you need? Which responsibilities do you want to give away? And especially if it's a project you want to develop with this, which is not only within your company, but which also contains external partners, the coordination of work is very important. And then last but not least, the cost planning. So you will have to think about per project partner, but also as consortium itself, like what are the direct personnel costs, the costs for other goods and services, for subcontracting, what will appear during the project lifetime. And then very important, of course, you need to check if this scope of project with these costs is really suitable for the funding call that you want to apply for. And this project planning will then, can really be up to 50% of your proposal in the end. It's dependent on the call, but this is a really important step. This information on a paper. So it's all about the writing. And here I want to give you some, just good advice, because actually what I've learned in another webinar is those who write well have advantages. Because writing is safety. You have time to think about what you want to do. You have time with your partners to think about what you want to do. Writing is always also about thinking. So you've done a lot about the thinking in the project development phase, but during the writing, maybe some correlations become even more clear. Maybe it becomes clear that you need more competence in some of the points. And so writing will help you here. Writing will also help you in deciding which way you want to go. Of course, in a project proposal, which is more informal, you will probably go more straightforward. But it will help, especially in a consortium, to decide on precise points. And it's also a personal expression. So you can, through writing, express basically how you work together with your project partners. So you have always, in a text, you have always a relationship and an information level. Here, Of course, it's a proposal, so it's more on the information level, but still, I think it's in the little phrases where you can show off really like how well you're working together. And it can be even just if the style is very kind of the same throughout the whole document, throughout the whole proposal. And you will read through the text and see like if people are really on the same page. And most important, for a project proposal, writing is advertising. So you will clearly define the target group and really consider what effect the text will have. And here it's really about convincing the funding agency. And yeah, coming to the next point. So writing will take a couple of time. And here it's very important to think about the different steps, the different phases of a writing process. And you will need to take time for each of them. So normally you start about just thinking, doing some mind maps, some structure of the text, giving some comments, and then going really into this writing a raw version of the text. And here, very important, write quickly because it will make the text sound very natural. And then you will need to have quite a lot of time to revise a text. So what I've learned before is actually you have to check 3 things. And for these, in best case, you have 3 different persons, because especially the person who wrote most of the parts of the text is already so into the text that he won't, or she won't, she will miss misunderstanding something which is not good in the text. So you will need 3 persons at least to check the content, the target group, and also the language. And here one question, maybe to, so that it's not only my talking. What do you think, like how much time you should take for each of the steps? You can just switch your microphone on if you want to give a estimate. I mean, there's nothing good or bad, it's just a personal opinion. Okay, no guesses? Something from your personal experience?
Yeah. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Freek.
Hi, and Roxanne. Thank you for your explanations and the storyline. And yeah, from my experience, it really depends, of course, on the topic that you're writing about, the amount of partners that you are, stakeholders that are involved, and not just the ones that you really want to collaborate with, but also the ones like primary users, right? Secondary users, those kind of stakeholders. And to me personally, I have a design background. So what I usually did, and still do a little bit at RAI, but usually did before I started working at RAI, is really think together with those kind of stakeholders and users on a design thinking approach. Yeah, what do you want to achieve, right? So not really about what is the solution you want to work for, but more what is the most appropriate solution which benefits all of these partners. Because usually when you start writing a proposal, or you have a solution in mind, but that could be a solution to one stakeholder, but could create other additional problems for other stakeholders, right? So
Or benefits.
or benefits, yeah, it
Yeah.
could be both. So it's very important to really have that clear. And I know from experience that really takes a lot of time, like months, basically. And then the business side will step forward because you don't have months to write a proposal. I mean,
Sure.
and it depends, of course, right? So, so that's a very difficult balance you have to find. And it's more about the thinking, and then the writing is iterative, right? So you have several versions which you communicate about, and you you communicate with that with the partners, and maybe also those stakeholders. And then revising, I don't have a lot of experience with that part. I'm just writing. And then so maybe someone else can explain that, but yeah.
Maybe
But
here
this, I mean,
just
this is a very important step for the whole project, because if you don't write this thing correct and on the right detail, you will encounter problems when you start the project. So
yeah, maybe just a comment. So what you've explained about the thinking about or idea development in a project for a project proposal, that's all the step before the writing. So here the thinking is really about just how do you want to structure the text, what have you already decided on, and how do you want then to structure it in a proposal. So it's really about this part of thinking, but yeah, the other part, like this project development, will take probably many months in most of the calls. Yeah. Bram?
Yeah, thanks a lot. What my experience is that it is also sometimes going back and forward, of course, with some different opinions of people. Because yeah, when you think, okay, we have to write structure, let's start with writing, then you have technical people maybe who thought about the structure, but then you have also people who think about, okay, how are the evaluators looking at this, and maybe it's better to change it a little bit. So it's I think it's also a little bit back and forward, and but it really helps. And thanks also for your introductions. It really helps that you think about it in the beginning, how you are going to do it, because sometimes you see that people are so enthusiastic, they just start, huh? And they do thinking, writing, and revising through each other.
Yeah.
So a good structure helps, but it will it's not the case in many cases. That is my experience, that it then goes exactly like you planned it, because yeah, sometimes you have to go back and change a little bit and
That's
so
for
on.
sure.
So yeah.
That's for sure. So in this slide, we just have the errors in one way, but you're right. Of course, also here you will have like some iterations, and maybe I can just share with you like what we've been told, like what would be the perfect amount. It's actually 1/3 for each of the parts. So really first about thinking, the structuring the text, then writing. And I think that's like, I know it from the typical, like from the normal work in a day. And sometimes you have here maybe more time that you spend on, but revising is just like, okay, in one day we need to revise and the deadline is here. So keep in mind this will also help to make it a convincing proposal. And yeah, also here's some tip for writing in groups. Actually, it's a basic thing. Yeah, Bram, maybe first.
Yeah, it's cool and interesting to see the 1/3 that you say, because what you also see in a lot of projects is that for the revising part is only 5 minutes left, eh?
Yeah.
You could
Or
say.
none.
Yeah, and we're done. Okay, let's double check it last time. But I think it's really good to say that this is also a very crucial part, and
Yeah.
that's what you want to say. It's
Yeah.
not only the final check and then go, but yeah, a lot of times you see that there's no time left to to think
And
about
also,
again.
I think what we've learned also from proposals that we've written, actually, it's always also good to have an external reviser, really to buy someone in who has experience on it. And because then sometimes it really comes clear that there are some correlations that you haven't mentioned, or that you haven't explained well, or on a very too abstract level, actually. Yeah, so keep it in mind if you set like internal deadlines when you prepare a proposal. And yeah, here also the tips for writing in groups. Of course, you need some open access file for the whole group, and very important, basically, and that's something even we can learn at our cluster from, is you need one main editor, basically. You need one person who sets also the editorial guidelines, so that everyone uses the same terms, the same synonyms, abbreviations, that the spelling is the same, that not one person is using British English, one is using American English, so it should be the same. And this will make it much easier to read, not coming from the content, but really only about, I think, the text itself. Yeah, so I think that's a quite interesting graph, but there are also other things I would like to stress. So maybe you can give me your thoughts. What do you think, what makes a text a good one, or a proposal a good one? I would like to, yeah, get a little bit your thoughts on this.
Yeah, to start maybe from my side, in my opinion, a text is a good one when it's good for the people where it's for. So sometimes you need to have a more technical text, and sometimes when it's for evaluators from public side, for example, then yeah, let's not make it too difficult with technical things. And yeah, that's what I see, and where really the added value is also of a external writer, but also of an external evaluator, like you said, to think about, okay, for who are we making this text? And yeah, a lot of people, especially from company sides, are only thinking about, okay, I have great ideas, I'm going to write it down, doesn't matter who is going to read it, it's great. But yeah, that does not work. Yeah, so take a look at
So,
for who it is.
So the target group itself, and also to not be, even if it's a technical text, so that you break it down and make it understandable.
Yeah.
Even difficult terms.
Yeah.
Yep. Some
Yes.
other ideas?
Just if I may, I was thinking about the clarity. It needs to be what's it called, clear. It needs to be clear. What are you trying to achieve? Not like the words like the written around or something like that. It's just like to the point, and clarify what you're trying to say and what are you trying to do exactly.
Yeah, that's very important to make it clear. Yep. Some other ideas?
I have one, and
Bruno?
in my opinion, I think Bram, I agree with you. I think it can be more clear, clarify. I think it could be because I think for an external evaluator, when they read, I think if they read when they read at first time, if they understand the project, what will be the benefit of the project, if the project is relevant. I think the result of the project being approved, it's easier if the proposal is easy to understand. But if one evaluator is difficult to read the proposal, to understand it at the first or the second, it could be difficult for a possible approval. And I think in the proposals you need to, I think the sentence when the evaluator reads, they must, or I don't know how to say, but when the evaluator reads, imagine the project. So they read and they can imagine what will be the project, how they can implement it. If someone when they read, imagine the whole project and they can like see the proposal in real time, I think it will be another reason to the project be approved.
Yep, completely agree. Maybe I give you also some summary. Yeah, we already like put here some things, but you already mentioned a lot of these actually. So the first one, what you've mentioned, is really about the understandable, what you can see in the bottom. Also, actually, to have it factual, so based on facts, have it complete. What you already said, it's not written down here, but that it's suiting the target group. And also, I would say that it's actually polite. It's also something, yeah, what is maybe sometimes overlooked. Correct informed content language, that you have also very low level of abstraction. So do not just take what is standing in the proposal and just copy paste. Do it like, what does it mean for your project? Like, what is your really the precise goal? And also when you think about the text itself, keep it as short as possible. Evaluators won't have much time. They do not want to read a lot of pages. Of course, sometimes you have a template with points that you need to address, but actually that's also where the executive summary or abstract is becoming even more important when the text is very long. And about the structure, not only of the text itself, but also of the sentences. And this will also make it more understandable. And yeah, to go even more into detail and to give you some really ideas for how to write understandable, I will give you here some tips. So basically, first have a logical and clear outline. So the readers should also be able to distinguish between like the important points, the more unimportant points. You can use, for example, the order, the structure to help the reader here. Choose also like the choice of words makes a text more understandable. So if you use short, concrete, sometimes maybe also words which can visualize something, and if you do not use words with different meanings, it may help. And also what actually I'm also doing, like using the passive phrases. I think what some of us might have learned during like university or something, that you should never write something like we are doing this and that. But what you can do is also in a official text, like use the people and organizations that are responsible for the different actions and do not hide the actors. Like really use them. Also here again, use a simple sentence structure, use few filler words because they will not make it easier to read. Also do positive writing, so no unnecessary negations. Keep in mind the word order, grammar, spellings, and use so-called understanding boosters. So use, for example, reminders throughout the text, use examples, do at some stage maybe a short summary, use a glossary. And what you can also do is really to use the text and write short paragraphs to tune into the upcoming, what is coming next in the text, so called advanced organizer. If you the first example, it is avoided to incur additional costs during the project period. They we can do it interactive. I can also just give you like the one kind of a solution what we were thinking about. So here, for example, just to let you know what we were thinking about. So it is avoided to incur additional costs during the project period. So the first thing is really about this doubled, like this negation. So first step would to write just like no additional costs are expected. But what is even more what is maybe even easier to eliminate the passive voice and to write really the consortium expects no additional costs during the project period. So with this sentence, you show like, we do not plan at all to have additional costs. So we think our plan is good. And in this one is like, oh, we think there will be some costs coming up. So we want to prepare you already. So you know what I mean? So it's just about the wording, and it will make the sentence look different. And here for the second one, in the following section, the results, activities, delimitations, and deliverables are described in detail in the single work packages. So we have actually, for example, a word what we do not need, like in detail in the work packages. We do not mention like single work packages. It's just a filler. And also when we think about deliveries, for example, what is meant with that? Could we not rename it just like inputs? And also about here again are described. So this passive voice, just write like the following sections, describe the results, etc. So the main focus will be on this part of the sentence. And the verb is always a very important part of a sentence. Any questions on these? Otherwise, I can go forward. Yeah, what also helps to write understandable. So actually enumerations can help to write something like first, second, third, if there is chronological way. Use the question answer style. So you do not need to write questions directly in the text, but you can like try to keep the reader up when kind of trying to formulate some soft question. And also lead contents through sentence connections. So what do I mean with that? First is you can use really the contents. So if you write two different sentences and you start with the old information, then you give a new information. And in the next sentence, you take this new information, put it in the beginning and add a new information. So this will help even without any other wordings or something to follow what your thinking process was. And also, of course, you can use conjunctions and or, but, however, everything what you already know. What's also making it easier, understandable to use the same subject throughout a paragraph and to use convincing graphics. And here also question mark. So a reminder, do graphics in a good visualization so that even if, for example, the reviewer prints the proposal out, that it's readable in black and white. So keep that in mind. Maybe some will be old school and print it out, and then it's still easy to read. Yeah, some other tips. So main contents, put them in the main sentences. Do not put it in subordinate clauses. So all the important information put in the main sentences. To make it more like livable, the document, change between short and long sentences. Put just very short subordinate clauses. Keep a chronological order. And what I've mentioned before, place the verbs in the very front of a sentence, because verbs are the most strong words, the strongest words that you can use. Another example, or two other examples. For example, the first, consortium partners that are writing the proposal today have worked together in a former project. Here we have again this chronological order. So why don't we rewrite consortium partners have worked together in a former project. And here, for example, you can use a dash. Today they are writing another proposal. So this marks like, here's some surprising change in the text. And the most important point is here that they are now writing another proposal. The second one, the project management manual, which reads like a guide for consortium partners, is 30 pages long. What would you read here as the main information?
Yeah, the 30 pages, huh? So
yeah, and is it really important?
No, so the rewriting is is better, huh? The focus is on the guide.
Yeah, so basically put the main information in the main sentence also. So for example, here the project management manual, 30 pages long. I mean, it's just not that necessary information, reads like a guide for consortium partners. So only little things can make a difference.
Can I ask one question? Also about the images. You told something about for printing in black and white and stuff like that. But images and examples are sometimes really good. On the other side, an example is just an example, and then the focus is on there. And that's the same with images. Some of them are self-explaining, but some of them are not self-explaining. Do you have some advice about that? Is it good to use a lot of examples, or should you say let's not do that?
It may help if, for example, if there's even if there's in the call some precise wording, what you are still for your own maybe think about, okay, what does it really mean? And what do we understand? And if you want to make it clear, you can, of course, first ask the funding agency what they think about it. But in that sense, even if you kind of define it throughout your proposal, and you're still for yourself thinking like, if I take the same proposal, the same sentence in 1 year, because maybe it takes 1 year to get accepted, to get approved, and I take and read it again, would I still know what I've read? If yes, then perfect, you don't need an example. But maybe if you see, oh, an example would be good here, just a small one, then I would mention it. But just my personal opinion about the visualization. Best case, it's self-explaining, of course. And I think, graphic or visualizations are very good for, like, for example, using a Gantt chart. That's something people know how this tool looks like. So it's easy understandable. And maybe if you put in place a new, for example, if the methodology is very important and you have different steps and you want to make it clear in just like a short visualization, then it may help a lot. So maybe just that's also part for the reviser, that he is stepping back and has again a look and sees like, this visualization helps me to understand the writing. At some point, basically writing with these dashes. We have already so many lines in a text, it's better to just put a dot or something. And also when you read through, it's always repeated this big term of architecture quality gate. And this makes the text even bigger, which is not needed. So you could actually just rewrite first paper. Paper is very abstract, so you could be even more precise. For example, this handbook describes, and then you just summarize what's here. So Okay, motivation, normally motivation should be already in the text, so I skipped it here, but then sets out the context. You can just write, describes the context, explains at which point should be performed, so the timing, outlines the costs, so the costs and the benefits you can see here of the architecture quality gate. And you see there's just one single small sentence and nothing more is needed. Here also, what makes actually text even more understandable are also the punctuation marks. The dot itself is still the nicest punctuation mark. It's clear. Then you can, but also of course, use, for example, a colon to break sentences or to highlight something in the text, or maybe you can also use it in titles. And one hint here, do not use brackets, because you can see here in the example, like Peter, grandma's friend, if it's in the brackets, it seems like not important, and not important things you won't write in a text. So it's better to just use a comma or even use the dash, because this stresses that this information is important. In this the part, because it's not the most yeah, it's more about grammar, so you can go through it again by your own. And here I'm coming to the last idea how you can do text understandable. So take advantage of really structuring your text according to the So starting with the aims, the objectives, these are the most important ones, coming to a work plan, the organization structure, the budget. So you can see like which is also more important is standing in the beginning, and then coming more to the organizational parts. Identified a good funding call, build a good consortium, had a good project idea, developed it good, did a good writing job, then you will be very happy and submit. And maybe if it's not approved directly, you will resubmit, or just also think about what are your key learnings if you read an evaluation report, and you can then just decide like what is coming next. But do not think that even a revised submission is not helpful. It will help you to get better for the next one. So for submitting, this depends very on the call. So here I won't give you too many details, but it can be a one-stage or two-stage application procedure where you have 1 or 2 deadlines, which is very important. You will probably have some template. If not, you can also have a look at other templates for calls so that you see like how you could structure the text. And what's also important to check out what is the assessment system. So what is the threshold level? So to see what minimum amount of points do you need to get? What are the weights for the different proposal parts, and that you can then stress more or less. In general, there are 3 criteria, or also proposal parts, I would say. So the excellence, the impact, and implementation. And here, just a short wrap up of what you've learned before. So in the excellence, so it's all about introducing what are the do's. So name, title, you need to put it there, the call identifier, use the wording of the call, describe your approach, the objectives, the state of research, method, innovation potential, the qualification of the team, other involved stakeholders, and also very important here about the impact. what is the connection to other initiatives, global challenges, maybe also to some regulations, policies, and something new here. Also mention the gender balance in your consortium, especially in European projects. This becomes even more important with the time. Some don'ts, superficial descriptions. So put a low abstraction level in your text. Do not repeat from other already submitted proposals, and do not hustle. So bad proposals will ruin your good plans. So take your time for also these 3 steps of writing, and as before said, keep the time for revising your text. The impact, so what are the do's? So describe how your project contributes to, in the first way, to the work program itself, and also to maybe other substantial impacts that are not mentioned in the work program. Also describe the measures to maximize the impact, the dissemination exploitation plan, what we've mentioned before. Put some KPIs to make it really measurable. And you can also really, here in the impact part, divide into the subcategories, what we've mentioned before in the unique selling proposition part. Don'ts are that the impact is not well defined, quantified, not relevant, not real, and too optimistic. This won't help you when you get accepted, and you won't address the expected impacts. Then do not repeat only the impacts which are mentioned in the course. So do the reference to your proposal. And also here again, do not copy paragraphs from former projects, and really also refrain from very generic competition market analysis or anything like this. Make it precise as possible. For the implementation, some do's. So show in tables, charts, as discussed before with Bram, if they are necessary, and show the task resources divided among the partners. Be realistic here, define the responsibilities, and also describe the relevant results per task. What are the outcomes? Don'ts, here again, copy paragraphs, and also do not involve partners without a significant input on the task, and not just to put some more associated partners. It won't help you. And also do not forget a plan B. So some emergency measures, when we think about in the beginning, what are the risks, the uncertainties, have a plan B, and also write it down so that the funding agency knows what you would do with their money in case of a risk appears. So for the implementation, the main contents are the work plan, the management structure, procedures, and the consortium. And here I'm taking Bram's question. Sorry, I didn't see it before.
You're still muted, Bram.
Sorry, correct. All those buttons. One question about the previous slide and one side, Mark, you made it, this one, yeah? Yeah, of course, I understand that the don'ts don't involve partners without a significant input. On the other side, sometimes it's good to have a partner with a specific name inside your project. But you said also something about the letters of support. I think you said it, So did you say don't focus too much on that because it will not help you? Because a lot of times it's really, everybody's really busy with those letters and thinking it's important. What's your opinion?
I think, yeah, of course, especially if there's a very important name or company, what you would say, okay, these are very important, then of course you can put them as associated partners, so without having also costs funded by that project. So that's the meaning of associated partner. That for sure, but what we've learned from, for example, in Interac, we had a proposal and they directly told us, like, of course you can put them, but in the first evaluation, it won't help you. So the consortium will be assessed. And then, of course, if maybe there are some other projects directly on the same page with you, then the associated partners will be taken into account. But the main focus is really on the consortium, the paying partners, I would say. But of course, we are also doing the letter of supports, and especially if you can, like, when through the letter is becoming clear why there may be some correlation between other projects, something like this will help, I think.
Yeah. And one more question maybe about this one. I fully understand it, and I agree also with you. It's a little bit follow the money, so the partners who receive the money are the most important ones. Sometimes you also see, we are now also busy, Freek, that's why he's now in another call, with a big project where there is a little bit disbalance of partners in how much money they receive. That's also sometimes difficult, that one partner just is too big in your consortium. Or do you
maybe
say that, yeah, sometimes a problem, sometimes not, of course, but what's your idea about that?
Can I jump in, Anna?
Yeah.
Okay, so we recently received that feedback. Actually, we had a project that we submitted, and the one partner had 60% of the costs, and it was not in relation to the other partners at all. And we were told that this is usually a negative point in a proposal, because they want a balanced consortium. They don't want one partner doing everything, because also then the risk is highest if one partner receives most of the money. And they said maximum is 50%, but that's like the top that one partner should ever receive from the entire sum that you receive from the funding authority.
Yeah.
So they prefer like 30-40%, depending on how many partners, of course. That gets less, the percentage, but if it's 3 partners, between 30 and 40%.
Yeah, clear. Yeah, that's that was also a little bit my feeling. But sometimes, yeah, there's a partner which is really crucial in that topic and is the key player.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you could maybe do it, but it's really a risk. And yeah, you are making a project with multiple partners, because it's also about collaboration and not about one big one. So
yeah, we received the feedback that then maybe you need more partners, like have a bigger project, let's say, so that that percentage goes down, because other partners are also receiving money, or new partners are receiving money, or that you really have to try and shift the workload, that maybe if the competence is for one of the tasks is also available in one of the other project partners, that the big project partner hands off some of the work to one of the smaller ones to give a little bit of that money there. Yeah.
okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions so far? Otherwise, then we would jump headfirst into the workshop that we have prepared for you guys. So we have 2 parts to the workshop. The first is, as Anna mentioned earlier already, the perspective chart. We would like you to get to know the writer in you. And then the second one is, we prepared a text for you that we would like you to read and then change according to what you have learned so far, what you would do better, and then we will review it with you. We have already marked everything that we thought should be changed, and then we'll go through that together. So the first is the perspective chart. Okay, now Anna, can you change the slide mode for me? Thanks. All right, so that you remember again what it was, the 4 parts. what you like about writing, what you dislike about writing, what you have already applied and learned about writing, what you view as a good writing practice, and the last is what you would like to learn about writing. So we'll give you 5 to 10 minutes to fill that out. Just do it on a piece of paper or Word document on your own. And then we would like to discuss afterwards what how you see yourself and hope that you get a feeling for the writer in you. If you have any questions, we're always there. But just start writing. Hi, Fig. Welcome back.
Thanks, and thanks for letting me back in. I think I missed half of the assignment, so I just have to write a piece of text within 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay, so this is a perspective chart, and
Right.
just answer the questions on, like, the 4 questions on the chart about yourself. So what you like about writing, what you dislike about writing, what you would like to learn about writing, and what you view as a good practice already, or what skills you've already applied when writing a proposal or something like that. And you have 5 to 10 minutes to focus
think
on
about
what.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Perfect. Thanks. All right, maybe last minute to write everything down and then we can discuss. All right, would anybody like to volunteer and present how he or she sees himself, herself as a writer?
I can start.
Perfect, thank you, Bruno.
So, writing is not my thing, but I learned I learned to write. I learned to write well here when I enter in the Mobinov about this proposal. I think what I already know, it's about how we can put an idea in the text more clearly in a short text with only with the relevant information that the evaluator needs, and to structure sentences, to not repeat words, and use synonyms to turn our proposal more clear and more effective when evaluator reads. About the skills, I think creativity, because we need to when we create in words, so we have to come up with new words to the text more be more how to say, more clearly, but with a good image of the proposal. I think another skill is the resilience, because it's a difficult task to write in a short time, because this is a difficult task, because in month, but proposals we need 1 month or less to write a clear proposal, and this is the skills. About the dislike about the writing, it's how to say, it's difficult task because it takes time. We need to revise not only once, twice to be the best proposal for the result be good. About writing, I think put ideas in text, so we have an idea, that part of the mind map, how we can to turn an idea into practice in the proposal. I think it's I think it's the aspect that I love about writing. And then about to learn about what I would learn about writing, how we can write in a short time. So what will be the strategy or tools that exist to make the best proposal, how tips, suggestion, but here we learn some things. But I think with the experience on writing, it could be, we will learn how to make the best proposal in a short time. So this is my input.
Perfect, thank you very much. Yeah, for your skills, you said that you already know how to write it clear and concise. I feel like Germans have the tendency to have very long run-on sentences. It's a German thing, you can just put one sentence after the other. And so I feel like the language always also makes a difference as well, because in English, automatically, I don't know, you use shorter sentences rather than in German. But sometimes the German tendency tends to creep into the English as well. So I noticed that I need to make sure my sentences are very clear and concise, because I can just add one thing after the other to make it sound great. but not very doesn't make it easier to read. So yeah, very good that you already know how to do that. I think we have time for one more person if someone wants to share.
I can also go next. That's
Perfect.
okay.
Thank you, Christina. The stage is yours.
Okay. So, but I already know about writing. I think I got the hang of this formal style that you need for proposals because I think it has a specific style that you usually use. I'm also quite good with the structure, and I managed to make my sentences not too long because also like in German and Hungarian, we also write very long sentences.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gotten better for me. What I dislike, yeah, like the others mentioned, if you want to make good text, you really need a lot of time and also to focus on that one specific thing and not on your phone or the chat and the emails. So I think that's sometimes difficult, especially if you are in the office. What I like about writing, just like you mentioned, I think once you start working on it in text, it becomes much more clear what's the goal, what you want to do. So yeah, it really helps me to think about the project more. And what I would like to learn, I would like to become better in highlighting the most important aspects. Sometimes I feel like I add sentences that are not really necessary. So it's good if you revise what you are writing and also to involve others in the feedback. I think that was a good point of view to involve 3 people because sometimes I just write something and I feel like this is perfect, but yeah, you should also always share with others for feedback for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it from my side.
And
Thank
this
you very
also,
much.
yeah, thanks. And actually, this also with the revising, it does not only count for proposals. You can use it for important emails. You can use it for if you just write an article for a website. So basically for all kind of text. And I think now we've found 2 new idea writers for us. So Bruno and Christina are writing the next raw version and the rest is revising. And I can just agree, like home office is also for myself, if I need to write a deliverable or proposal or something, it's sometimes a very good option to have a calm space and to just switch off all the other electronics that may be around.
Yeah, especially I'm not in the office then to distract her so she can
Yeah.
write. All right, perfect. Thanks for partaking in that first exercise. I think we should move on to the second one. Anna, you said you would also share it on the screen.
Yeah.
If you would, please.
Just change.
So this was, I can already say something about the text. It's a summary about the hydrogen network that we have here in our cluster and that I am leading, let's say, or that I am managing. And we did this exercise when we had a seminar about how to write better. We were supposed to write our own texts. And this is what I had written. And well, now translated into English, but German version was written by me. And then we went over it to figure out what I could improve. So I would give you let's say 5 minutes to read and make your own, to think about your own comments, what you would change. And then we can go over it together. That sound good to everybody? Great. All right, last minute, please. All right, so from what Anne was telling you earlier in the theoretical input, what are some things you would change after reading this? So just throw it out there. Should be.
I can say something. I think the first that I see, it's the word project is a lot in the text. So project, and I think we can use sentiments about that. I think I don't know. I think the text is more the right. I think it's more informally, not formal. I don't know. I think it's more like when I read, I think it's more informal text than the formal in the proposals. I don't know. I have when I read, it was I sense that it's more informal than formal, because proposal must be formal with the a right structure of sentence. And this is my opinion.
I
so
think
far.
Anne, yeah, thank you, Bruno. I think Anne, he meant it's not formal enough, right? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not formal. Oh.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Any other comments from someone else?
Yes, I also have a comment. I hope you can hear me well, because the washing machine here is rotating with high speed. So
No, we can hear you fine.
Okay. Well, it's more like not in terms of words or formality. It's more about I was a bit confused when I read the lower two verbs. So at the beginning, I think the start is very clear, right? It's about the project. It's the cluster operating since, etc., etc. And then you say, well, we support in initiating the project idea. And then the last paragraph is about, well, it is already funded by the Central Innovation Program. So I was a bit confused about, is this still an application phase, right? Are you still writing the proposal, or is it an ongoing project today? So it's not about the amount of words or formality. I was just a bit confused of I don't know, the phase of the project, if you want to call it like that.
Yeah. Yeah, the background, let's say, it's already funded and ongoing. It was, yeah, when I did the writing exercise, it was more of just summarizing what it was about, rather than writing a proposal. But yes, I can see how in this context it is not clear what project phase is currently going on. Yep. Thank you. Yep.
So basically, to even make it clear, so there are two parts: a network, the High-to-Zero network, which is funded already.
Yeah.
Then out of this network, there should be built some consortia, which then apply for new funding. So that's the switch between the paragraphs, actually.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah,
Okay.
it's not clear. So
Yeah, well, if you add that line in between those, then it's more clear, of course.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? Then Anna and I have
Maybe if-
already.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll show you what we reviewed as well, the reviewed version.
Just share the other one.
All right, as you can see, a lot of red. Let's just, I'll just go over it from the top. So as you already saw in the version before, I had a lot of passive. It was already underlined in blue. So instead of saying the hydrogen network is operated, we can just say that the cluster mobility and logistics operates the network H2 since April 2021. And it needs to be a short sentence so that it's clear and concise, not again these long German run-on sentences. Then the second sentence within these networks, there are 30 project partners, and then I explain which partners there are. I could just say there are 30 project partners from economy and research. I mean, no one really cares in detail if it's a small and medium-sized company, a large company, or a research and development institution. Also, I don't know, for some reason, the term research and development institution has manifested, but you could also just say research institution to make it even more short and concise. Then the third sentence, these project partners come together in consortia to develop solutions for the following 3 areas. It is repetitive. Instead, we can just say that we are developing solutions for the following 3 areas, which I then mention I numbered them from 1, 2, 3, but there is no specific order in these focus areas that we have in the network. It's just, it was numbered like that in the proposal, so I just went with it, but there's no order, there's no rank, let's say. I could have just used another form of bullet point rather than doing 1, 2, 3, because that suggests an order that the production of fuel cells and their components is more important than the on-site generation of green hydrogen, or that it is the main focus. And the third last focus is the on-site generation of green hydrogen. So just normal bullet points, otherwise it suggests an order. Then for the second paragraph, we have the cluster mobility and logistics supports the consortium initiating, and then I keep saying the, and again, you right, Bruno, I also saying a lot of project. So just saying idea or meeting, and then I would have already a lot of words that are taken out of the sentence and makes the sentence much shorter. The next sentence again is passive, because I say the project outline is then submitted, instead of saying we submit to the suitable funding program. Same with the next sentence, is positively approved. Positively, well, if it's approved, it was definitely positively approved, because otherwise it would not have been approved. Therefore, I don't need the positively, I can just take that out. And then we have the subordinate clause. The cluster provides support on the same points in the subsequent application. That's just very wordy. It doesn't really make sense. So we can just say supports, because the verb, as we learned, is the most important part. It is strong. So I don't need to say provide support. We can just say supports, because then I am showing we're actively doing something, and it makes it look much better in the proposal. next, again, the passive, because that's what I learned in university. Everything had to be passive, so I did always write it in passive. We can just say that it's a German program, the Central Innovation Program funds the Hy2Zero network. And then lastly, for the last sentence, instead of saying the working group will thus continue to promote hydrogen as an important substitute energy source for fossil fuels, I could write that right away in the beginning, at least the promoting hydrogen as an important substitute energy source for fossil fuels, because then right away you know why we're doing this network, why we initiated this network, what is the goal, the aim, rather than putting it at the very end when it really is one of the most important parts, why we're even following this network or why we decided to initiate it. And it would make it much easier to understand what the goal is of the network. I mean, sure, it's a hydrogen network, it also tells you a little bit what it's about, but it really doesn't go into detail. And with that sentence right at the beginning, it would have made it more clear and concise. And yeah, Anna, did I miss anything? Otherwise,
I don't think so. But you can see, I think that's a main line from all of this reviewings. Like, if you just write the text for yourself, it does not maybe become clear that you repeat yourself with project. Maybe the content is not directly clear to the reader.
Yeah, especially since I'm doing the network, I know all about the network and it's clear to me, but it is not clear for an external person that has nothing to do with the network and knows that it's a network that tries to initiate project ideas, which is suddenly the change that Freek mentioned, that it's not clear if it's already funded or not. To me, obviously, since I do it, it's clear, but for the outside reader, it is not. Therefore, as we said earlier, 3 people to revise a text makes it much more clearer to the project evaluator then, or proposal evaluator, I mean. Yes, so do you have any comments, questions, remarks about the text? Otherwise, we can send that to you as well, so you can see every mistake that we had highlighted. Yes, Bram?
Yeah, maybe one point about also style and stuff like that. That's also what I wrote down. When somebody makes a text and others are then changing the style, that is also sometimes really difficult. Sometimes I'm myself the evaluator. You have a text and then you think, okay, yeah, we have to change it. But when you start changing it, you're making it even worse.
Yeah.
Then it's better to throw it away and make a new one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's also about style, and yeah, there's not always a good or bad, huh?
Yeah.
Can also be different, of course, but changing a text with another style and then you have 2 styles inside, that's also really complicated.
Yeah, you're right. That's what we learned in our seminar as well, is that it's best actually to gather all the input from all the project partners, and then you have one person writing the proposal, because then the style stays the same. Because the evaluators can always see whenever there's a change in person, like when someone else started to write a part of a proposal. So for a consistent style, it would be best to have one person writing the text and gather every information you need beforehand, or discuss with the project partners and let them hand you a text, which you then put into your own style so that it matches the document. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right. Other than that, I think then with the workshop part, we are done.
Yeah,
So
just maybe I don't know if you already have to leave for lunch. Of course you can. Otherwise, we would like to just do a very short wrap up, not 50 minutes, but maybe 5 more minutes.
So
Your part.
earlier we told you what key benefits we hope you learn, and now we hope that you learned those. So again, how to successfully scan the funding program landscape, how you can develop a great project idea that has been thought through, and then how to successfully write those proposals and make it be approved, and then the do's and don'ts that you should look for in a proposal and will do or don't do. Yeah. Yes, so we would like you to just give some quick verbal feedback for us, what you liked or what you had wished for to be different, or just anything that comes to mind, so we can learn from it and be better for the next webinar or seminar we do. So go ahead. Otherwise, I'll believe it was perfect, and we don't want that.
Yeah, I think it was good, interactive. Interactive is also about us, of course. Sometimes we have more time in such a session for the workshop part, you could say, to go in the smaller groups. But I think in this case, this was perfect. And yeah, I just like the way that you how you presented it in a good way, really understandable with good examples. So very good. I like it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I fully agree on that. Thanks.
Perfect.
Same here, guys. I think it was really well structured, and I liked your own example, so it was good, I think.
Thank you. I also saw we got a text message. Thank you, Blondine. All right, then I think we will make sure you get all that I tell you about our next events first before I send you into lunch. So we have next week our next online training session about the fundamentals of design thinking for cluster organizations. So it will be in the afternoon this time from 2 to 4 p.m. and it will be done by the zone cluster. So we're very excited for that. Some benefits that you will learn hopefully during that session is what exactly design thinking approach is and how it can help us as clusters or you as clusters. Then the key phases of the design thinking, it has 5 phases: the emphasize, define, ideate, prototype, and test phase. And then there will also be a workshop part on how to use design thinking in situations that might be relevant for your cluster. So don't forget to register. You have the registration link here. And yeah, we will make sure to send you all the slides and documents that we showed you here today, as well as the recording, so you can listen to our lovely voices again if you feel like it. And then I will say thank you very much for your attention and for actively participating. It always makes a webinar much more fun when you have active participants. And we wish you a great rest of the week and a good lunch now, hopefully.
Thank you again.
And hopefully to see you next week in the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
guys.
good
Have a
day.
good lunch.
Have a nice
Bye
day.
bye.
Thank you.
Thanks also
Bye-bye.
from my side. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.